Hello, hello.
Hey, Henrik.
Hey, hey.
Hey there.
Cool. So let me share the agenda for today. Here we go. And let me now ping all the people to show up. Perfect. So welcome everybody to the Hiero TSC call. Like any call we do in the Hiero project, this is an open call, which means everybody is invited to join this call, bring in content to the call, discuss with us on topics we have on the agenda. And like any our other calls, you can find information about it in our public calendar, where you can find all the different calls we do within the Hiro project. And most of them are even recorded and minutes are created. So if you go like back to last week and have a look at the Hiro TSC call from last week, you can get it here and either get an AI-based overview or have a look at the recording. And if you missed the last one, I recommend it anyway to watch it, because that was not only be done from the Hiro Community Day, it even had a great overview about the HIPS process and how HIPS works by Michael from Hashcraft. And we even created a HIP live within that call. So I think that was a quite special TSC call. And with that, I already gave an overview about what happened last week. But before we come to the agenda of this week, since all this has happened in the public and you can easily unmute yourself here and bring in, your point of view and on any of the things we discuss, or even bring in totally new topics, we need some rules for that, which is the antitrust policy of the Linux Foundation and the code of conduct of the Linux Foundation. So please contribute to these meetings, bring yourself in, but always do it in a friendly manner. Cool. And with that, let's come to the agenda of today. Oh, yeah, and I still have this insight. So last week, 1 week ago, several of us have been in Berlin. There was the Hiro Community Day, where we had a lot of different presentations about Hiro, having a lot of people from the community meeting for the first time in person. We had people there from 3 different continents. We had people there from the US, from Europe, and from Africa, which I think is really great, bringing so much people from around the world together. Um, yeah, still thinking about that day, it was huge and it was really done by a lot of different companies who helped us to create such a unique experience. That was great. Coming to the agenda for today. So normally I give an overview about what happened last week. I think I just did it, right? So we had the TSC call from the community day. We talked about what is an HIP, how to create a HIP, and so on. And this brings us to this week, where we have some topics on our agenda. Let's see if we will even make it through them, because we have several of them. Let's start with any updates or upcoming events. So no update or event is mentioned here in the schedule, but maybe anybody of you has something you would like to share about an event that is happening in the near future, and so on. So any questions from anybody or things you would like to share? Jessica, you unmute yourself.
Yeah, so first of all, I want to thank you for Hiero Community Day. I want to thank the community that was able to visit us and meet with us. And yeah, it was an incredible time. And definitely, we look forward for more. And we're working on a blog post that describes all the presentations that happened and things that we did during that day. So definitely watch out for that. I'm just in the process of linking the presentations that were given. Second thing, we have Rare Evo from the 28th to the 31st, and that is going to include a few presentations. One of them is going to be an LFDT open governance presentation, and how do open source projects work with open governance. And we also gonna have a panel by Hashgraph Online with GoDaddy, and a second presentation by Michael Cantor on HOL. So definitely is something that I will help make it. I think it might be recorded. I'm not 100% sure, but if it is, I will make sure to post the recordings and so that people don't miss it. But yeah, if you're in the area, if you're nearby Vegas, you're very, very welcome to attend.
Thank you. And I'm seeing some comments already in the chat. Let me answer those. So first of all, Brandon, you see I have opened it as a tab. So it was, I did a mistake. Somehow I was, like Ty came up with that hip, and for me it was like, oh yeah, you both sent me the same hip. So I put one here, but you see the 1500 is even the first step, so it's missed in the agenda because the other Brandon told me about it 3 minutes ago.
I
I
will
don't want it to
patiently
take
wait
the
my
agenda.
turn, Henrik.
Yeah. So you'll not be missed, for sure not. And regarding Diane, I recorded some of the presentation at Community Day. I even did some interviews at Community Day. All that is still, I recorded Sophie's session. Yes. I did not full Sophie session, maybe like 5 minutes are missing or whatever, but I tried to really record several things, and it's still all on my. I have bought this DJI camera thing, so it's still on the card. I have not looked into it. But Jessica and I, we already discussed, and from my mobile phone, the videos, pictures, and from others, I already have. And I will send everything over to Jessica because she will create a blog post about it. We will put it to awesome contributors and so on. And I assume next week everything of that will be live. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just linked the awesome contributions repo. If you go into
Oh yeah.
the
Let me open that. I think is it
thank you.
merged now? It
Yeah,
should
it
be
is.
right. Yeah.
It is.
So here we go. Hyrule Community Day, and here you have like all the presentations and the slides at least for all the different presentations are already here, and several are recorded. I will upload that to or Jessica once we have looked at everything and checked everything out. Cool. So let's go to the next topic. So before we come to the hips, we have a project proposal. I already last week, 2 weeks ago, I think last week, gave a short overview about it. So we have this Hyro Agentic support project which is a collection of skin and MCPs and so on that you can use with agents that, gives those agents a lot of knowledge about Hiero related topic, um, give access to an MCP to interact with testnet, an MCP that is using the Hedera documentation and has access to the Hedera documentation and so on. And for Cloud Code, it's even defined as a plugin so that within Cloud Code, it can just be installed as a plugin. Let me open the repo. So we have several skills here. We have a skill about the Hiero SDKs. We have a general information about Hedera. What is Hedera? History of Hedera. What is HBAR? And so on. A general information about Hiero. We have the Hedera. That is how to use a skill, how to use the Hedera MCP, how to configure it. We have a skill about Solo that makes it super easy to use Solo. You just say, hey, start Solo, and then it checks everything, check if Solo is present and so on, and just starts it on your machine if it works. MCPs, as said, are configured here too, like the Hedera docs MCP and the MCP that can be used to interact with testnet. And especially for Claude, it's super easy because you can install it within Claude as a plugin, and then you just have it, and everything is used automatically when needed. And this is currently a part of Hiero Hackers. And since it's there, which is quite nice, we already got 2 new skills as contributions. So after I showed it last week. And yeah, we would really like to bring that as one central place to collect all those tooling and additional information for agents to Hiero. So that is a proposal. As said, I even showed a live demo with Solo in the last call. So if you want more information, you can have a look on that. I would suggest to do a voting in an upcoming TSC because some of you have not been there last week, and now you would have a week to look at it if you want to. It's just, are there any questions on that? Any concerns, or is anybody like, oh yeah, I will have a look at it, and I assume I like to vote it in.
Hendrik, this is Alex. I'm driving, so
Hey.
I couldn't put my hand up. With regards to the project, I didn't really have a chance to look through the details. Is it similar to what is being done with the kind of SDK group? So you will have the separate repos of what we might have a skills repo, we might have a different tooling repo.
No. Yeah, it's one repo. So that is the idea, is to have one repo where everything is collected. And Claude, for example, now started to allow you, if the things in the repo are in the right folders, allow you to install that as a plugin so that everything is automatically installed. But first of all, the idea is to have an agent independent repo where you like agent MD skills and so on have in, and then for maybe Claude or whatever, you have additional metadata to install it as easy as possible.
But you keep mentioning that from a skills perspective, but if there's any other, tooling, would that, you're saying that that's also going to be managed within the same repo? I'm just thinking about there might be different maintainers for different portions of the agentic stack.
You mean like there are 2 skills, for example, for how
Well,
to
not skills. No. I'm not talking about skills. I'm talking about just different parts of the tooling. Whether, there's an agentic aspect that like HOL is talking about. You mentioned earlier with GoDaddy, which is the agentic registry, right?
Oh, but yeah, okay, understood. Yeah. I would separate that. So what we have here is really you load it into your agent, whatever that is, and then when you use that agent, it's it has more knowledge about Hiero, Hedera, whatever. You know?
Yeah. Okay. So it's really very skills focused. Just
Yeah. It's not only skills,
okay.
but MCP and stuff like that too. But that's the idea.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
But skills on how to interact with the
yeah.
MCP
Exactly. Yeah,
services.
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
That's the idea. Michael.
Yeah, I think since I consider myself an SME in this area, just to simplify for everyone, uh, there are a number of different metadata standards that have been used over time. We started with MCP servers, and then eventually we came out with things like skill.md and then agents.md and so forth. All of these are basically metadata formats. They are markdown files or JSON files that you can feed to an AI agent like Claude, Codex, OhmyPy, and so forth. And it provides it enough information where it can start leveraging, maybe it's a SaaS product, maybe it's a blockchain, maybe it's some kind of smart contract implementation, and so forth. So a repository like this, the way I'd imagine it is maybe you just call it Hiero Agentic Plugin, and that would contain your skills, your MCP servers, and your metadata files. And nowadays, these ecosystems, like for example, Codex and Claude, they've bundled everything together. It's called a plugin that has everything inside of it. And there's a little JSON file in there that says these are the skills, these are the metadata for this and that. And you can include it in their official marketplaces. At HOL, we actually run awesome Codex plugins, which is the #1 Codex marketplace. We have over 200 contributors on that. And they look just like this.
Yeah, and this is, for example, for Codex, as an example, I believe this could be done next, right? I just did it for Claude because I only use Claude, but happy if somebody adds a plug-in information for Codex as an example. Yeah. Any other questions, comments on that one? Okay, good. Then we come to the hips, and we have 2 hips today that will be presented. Only one is listed here. Sorry for that again. But we will start with the periodic holding fee for Hedera token service fungible tokens hip. And so, Brandon, do you want to present it? Should I stop sharing and you share something, or how do you prefer
I'll
to
be
do it?
happy. That'll be fine. I'll be able to talk
Okay.
through it and kind of explain what we're looking for, all that kind of stuff. Um, we actually just finished our company formation for what we're doing. It's going to be a real world asset tokenization platform. I'm not going to say what the assets are at this point, but essentially, the backing asset has a few things that are associated with it. It has storage fees, it has insurance fees. Of course, there is um, additional overhead that goes along with it. Most of the tokenized products of this type, they charge you when you tokenize the product, and then if you want to take physical delivery of the product. But of course, if somebody holds it for 25 years, you're paying for those storage costs over that entire time. Another example of a similar token, they charge every single time you transfer it. Well, we want these to potentially be used in DeFi. We want them to be used as a medium of exchange. So that kind of nullifies the usefulness of these tokens. So we want them to be as useful as possible. In our DeFi ecosystems, peer-to-peer payments, things along those lines. So we have to find a way to be able to cover those ongoing costs. Of course, something very similar in the TradFi space is, ETFs. And they have management fees that go along with the ETFs. And I would say that's probably one of the reasons why they're so popular. Of course, on the demand side, there's people that want access to all of these different assets. And in the TradFi space, they came up with a really good wrapper that not only makes it easy for people to own these assets, but also incentivizes people to bring new products to market. And that's what we're trying to do, create that incentivization on Hedera to tokenize new assets. So at first we were thinking we could have a depreciating token. And we went to our legal team to say, okay, well, over time, it would take more tokens to redeem for the physical asset. And they said, unfortunately, since we're trying to frame this similar to a digital vault receipt, you probably can't do that. You can't have it depreciating. So then they said, but you can have fees that are associated with it. So we looked at different ways we could implement the fees. We considered using a combination of the wipe token on Hedera and the mint token on Hedera. So we wipe a certain amount of the token from the accounts that are holding our token on, we'll say, a monthly basis. And then we mint those into our own account, a corresponding amount. And it's effectively like charging a fee. The problem with that was both from a customer perspective and from a regulatory perspective. Our legal counsel said that gave too much freedom to the token issuer or the entity that held those keys to potentially wipe the entire thing. Of course, anybody that might be holding these tokens would get concerned about having the power to wipe the entire amount. So we wanted to find a solution that limited our ability to be able to remove these fees in the form of the token over time. Initially, we set it up in this HIP 1500. Just do a transfer of a limited amount. We'll just say hypothetically it's 0.06% per month. That gets transferred from the holders' accounts to our account, and the fee is deducted. That was good, but we did have our legal look at that. And one of the things that we are dealing with is when you're dealing with tokens that are backed like this, when you make transfers between any customer's accounts and your accounts or vice versa, you need to have money transmitter licenses here in the United States, which generally cost about $2 million to get, and it takes about 2.5 years. We want to be launching this early next year, actually. So for the direct interaction with the customer, we're actually working with Hedera Council member BitGo, who has some solutions around that, but it doesn't cover everything. We figure we have pretty much nailed down what we need from them. But they also looked at our HIP 1500. This is our legal counsel. And they said those transfers that you're doing from the customer accounts to your account might need those money transmitter licenses as well. Just another red flag that they flagged. And they said what might be better is to again go back to what we were thinking before, wipe the small amount from their account, and then the depository account, it essentially shifts ownership from the BitGo management account to our account, and then we can mint those in the future. The difference being from our initial plan to use the wipe key is it would limit it to a certain percentage coming out of their account. Again, adding trust both for regulators and the customers. So we might have to do an addendum to 1500 to use that structure rather than an actual transfer. So I'll leave it there. We really submitted to get some more brain power on this and figure out other solutions or the best solution that we could do to make this possible on Hedera. We have looked at things like hooks and smart contracts to facilitate this. Concerns around that include, number one, complexity, other places where there could be mistakes made. And the other thing is it can't be opt-in. Of course, everybody has to be paying for the fee to be able to cover our costs. So it can't be something like with hooks that each account would have to opt in. It has to be something that if you're holding a balance, you're getting charged the fee. So I'll leave it there for any questions.
I had two questions you answered with the last two sentences. That was
Okay.
about what about hooks and what about smart contracts? Couldn't they do something similar? But you answered that within the last two sentences. Yeah.
Yeah, what we're hoping is this isn't just going to be useful for us, but it's going to be useful for anybody that has an asset on Hedera that has an ongoing cost associated. And once we've created this wrapper similar to ETF in the TradFi space, then we can repurpose it and use it for a lot of other assets as well.
Uh, so, um, yeah, I talked with Adrian a while ago, or I guess a month ago, and then Jesse, I think you were in that channel about this hip. I'm not sure if what's being submitted. I'm looking at it now, but I'm not sure if that's exactly the same draft that we were previously looking at.
It should be
Um,
very similar, yes. But again, we might need to make some tweaks around what the legal counsel just gave us.
for sure, for sure. So my first question would be, when you investigated smart contract execution, was there like a lot of this is just about time from last thing that holder did, like at time assessed at, and then maximum amount that you're allowed to take from them. So you have these hard restraints around your ability to take funds from the holders. Um, did you investigate mint burn through smart contracts with those restraints on those variables, or is that the complexity you're trying to avoid?
Um, as far as using a more structured wipe function, we have not investigated it as far as we did for the transfer function, which is in the current hip. So we would have to go into all that again.
Yeah, one of
Okay.
the
And what's the best way? And Jesse, I'll let you go. But
yeah.
Henrik, considering we want to make some tweaks here, what's the best way to do that? Is it to do an addendum to the current hip, or is it to resubmit?
Oh, in what state is the hip?
It's
Let
still in
me-
draft.
yeah, if it's a draft, you can do it on the hip.
Okay. All right. Understood.
As far as I know, I'm not the deepest hip expert, but as long as it's drafted,
Yeah,
it's
yeah, just
not
leave it
ready
in the
to
hip.
review, which means
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
edit it. Sure. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Alex. Yeah.
Okay, that's what we'll do then. And really what we're looking for here today is for you guys to be thinking about this problem that not only we have but other asset issuers on Hedera, and what's the best way to do it? Is could it be done with hips or hooks with, a modification to the hook hip or something along those lines? We just want to come up with the solution and then drive it forward.
Yeah, once you
Jesse,
guys do another update, like you're saying from legal counsel, can you ping me and let me know, and I'll try to review it after those updates.
absolutely. Thank you, Tyler. Jesse?
Yeah, I mean, just in terms of the adjustments to the hip, in speaking with legal counsel, it looks like a more elegant solution will be around leveraging the, I guess, wipe feature, but adding some additional functionality potentially around the wipe functionality. And it will just be a more elegant solution for the use case we're trying to bring to market. So we'll make those adjustments and then go from there.
Alex.
Yeah, I'm just curious because this holding fee. I mean, so there's the HCS custom fee schedule, which has kind of the fractional fee, the royalty fees in there. Um, and to maybe I missed it in your description. Was there no way to manipulate those, like the fractional fees as a holding fee? I know part of this is time bound in there, but I'm just curious to what extent that could be better orchestrated, leaving the token to be able to charge those, but having, say, a smart contract trigger the events for fee payments either to or from the token holder.
Yeah. Yeah, so one of the things that came up last week with the discussions with legal counsel was essentially that um, you'll run into potentially OFAC problems with having a fee that is being sent to an account subsequent if you have say, third parties that have picked up, the token on an exchange, on a decentralized exchange where there's no ability for, say, BitGo to do initial KYC. And so if we were able to do the wipe functionality instead, where the account is simply dissipating those tokens at a set amount on a monthly basis, then effectively um, the underlying assets that are held could effectively be garnished, and there's no actual exchange of token between the accounts. So if you end up, with an account that potentially is on a restricted list or has sanctions, you're not actually interacting with that account. That's where doing the wipe functionality would be far more elegant in this situation because there's actually no transference of tokens between the accounts. So that's where the thinking comes from.
Okay.
And
Okay.
Alex,
Yeah. So it's just the movement of that because even garnishment, obviously the
Yeah.
tokens end up going somewhere.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly.
and
Okay.
things like royalties, Alex, it's they're taken instead of a periodic basis. They're taken when it changes hands as far as a value transfer mechanism. So when it's bought or sold, that's when the fee is taken. And of course, we need to cover costs on an ongoing basis, dependent on time, not necessarily transfers.
Yeah, I was just thinking some creatively of doing just a periodic movement of tokens from one holding account to another to trigger the fee collection, right? So you could have the
Similar
contract
to
move.
what we have with staking now. That's when it's triggered.
Somewhat, but it's not. It's triggered. Again, you would trigger it by again moving it. You'd have two holding accounts that you just flip flop between to trigger the event that causes that fee to be paid out. So, but anyway,
No,
like I said, it's
understood.
your biggest issue is the around of who's holding the fees and interacting with that account, particularly if it hasn't been KYC'd.
Yeah. Yeah, and really the value is in the secured asset. And we do have a
Right.
solution if people are redeeming those for the physical asset, they have to go through the BitGo KYC AML. So as far as exiting into the physical asset, that's been taken care of. Of course, people in DeFi could still trade these for USDC or things like that, but we have crossed most of it, at least for what we're responsible for as far as the physical redemption.
Got it. Got it. Thank you.
I see Richard has his hand up.
I think Keith was first. But
Okay.
sorry.
Either way.
Go ahead, Keith.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Brennan. Thank you for the presentation. I just want to keep diving in on this. I did a quick survey of the market, and obviously adding this kind of capability to HTS would be a differentiator. At the same time, there's a cost. So I just want to come back to this question of, there is many solutions like this implemented on other blockchains who don't have this capability, and they do it in different ways, but one of the ways they do it is smart contracts. And obviously the same regulatory issues are at play. So I just want to dive deeper on, because I think we have to fully flesh out that this cannot be done through a smart contract implementation that you, and just explore that, understand that better.
Yeah, Keith, as I mentioned, we have looked very closely at smart contracts. It may be possible to have something that's similar. The concerns are, number one, additional complexity, additional risk, and if we can create the correct type of wrapper, it's going to be useful across a lot of other applications for Hedera as well. And then it's making sure that it's not opt-in, that the account has to pay this fee regardless, as long as it's holding the token. And those are the kind of some of the things that we got hooked up on as far as the smart contracts. I will say that what we're working on here, it could have significant scale for Hedera. Just the partners that we're working with. This isn't like a one-off where we're not going to tokenize a significant amount of assets. Now, of course, any builder is going to have pie in the sky, grandiose vision, but we actually have the partners that I can't really discuss right now or publicly. We can certainly talk about it privately, but we're confident that we're going to be able to tokenize a significant amount on the Hedera network.
Okay, I'll pass it over to Richard.
Is there a cross-chain story, and what is the cross-chain story for either your asset or other people who might want to do similar type of assets? You mentioned exchanges. Is your asset going to be exchangeable on centralized exchanges or on DeFi exchanges on other networks outside of Hedera, or do you see this as being just only Hedera?
Well, I do like the idea of forcing people over to Hedera, but as far as centralized exchanges, just like with the decentralized exchanges, we've talked with several, and the notification when you're purchasing these assets is just like when you have a fee that's associated with transfers. Saucer Swap will give you a warning just to give you a heads up. There's this additional fee that's associated with it. We would have the same thing. So as far as DeFi, that would work. As far as centralized exchanges, that would work with the proper notifications, terms, and conditions. As far as transferring this to other chains, we do have a cross-chain strategy, but we were thinking more along the lines of if other networks have similar functionality, Solana have it, issuing them natively on the other assets. But we do really want to drive people to mint these tokens on Hedera. That's one of our goals, is to use this as a driver with some of the marketing capabilities that our team has to drive people to Hedera. And that's where they're going to be most useful, both as a medium of exchange within DeFi and things like that to, prop up our ecosystem. One of the theories that we have is, with this fee, there's going to be some pushback. People are going to say, well, if I have this fee, but then we teach them about DeFi, about providing liquidity. But how do we drive value for that? Within Saucer Swap right now, we have V3, where if you're a market maker, you actually can make fees. You're not paying fees. So we can drive the people that would be interested in trading our assets. And I'm trying to prevent actually saying what the assets are because we're not quite ready for that yet. But trading these directly one for one, which is actually done in TradFi markets significantly now, only you're not paying a fee, you're getting paid. The more trading volume we can create around these assets, the more fees that are being collected by Saucer Swaps. So the liquidity providers get more of incentive to provide liquidity. And of course, that can be a feedback loop that can create a lot more action in our DeFi ecosystem. Jesse,
How's
it looks
the
like you had
accounting
something.
done? Oh, sorry.
What's that?
I have
The
some
accounting?
follow-up questions. Yeah.
Accounting in general, we know exactly. I mean, any distributed ledger, we know exactly what's been deducted. Any of the tokens that are in circulation are in the BitGo reserve manager account. All right, at the depository where we're keeping the physical assets. When they are wiped or transferred from the customer accounts, that ownership shifts from the BitGo account to our company's account. And then we would have the opportunity to mint those again, sell those, and that would be our profit, if that makes sense.
And so on the on-chain side, so I've got some HTS token, and I decide, hey, I'm going to deposit this into Saucer Swap into a liquidity pool. The actual owner of that token at that point, as far as the network is concerned, would be the liquidity pool.
Right.
But you
That's
aren't
right.
charging the liquidity pool your maintenance fee.
That's right. We would be. It would be everywhere. So when
you would charge the liquidity pool the maintenance fee.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And then there would be, the US dollars, we'll say, if it's a USDC, and whatever our token is, the amount of our tokens would reduce. So the price would adjust accordingly. And if people wanted to use that arbitrage opportunity, they certainly could.
I see. So Lehman and Tool, Jasper and I spent some time on this problem trying to think through it. And so here's kind of the parameters that I'm thinking of. The first one is if we make a change to HTS, we do want to do it in such a way that it is, meets the needs of the next person who comes along. And I think one of the things that we're worried about is whether we have sufficiently proven or demonstrated that the HIPS, methods that it has defined is actually flexible enough for everybody, which is why our first reaction is to say, is there some way to put programmable logic into the story where the details of how these different scenarios are handled can be provided by the customer, by you guys, rather than something that is baked into the platform forever. Every API that we add into the platform itself is something that it has a nonlinear impact on both the complexity of the system, the attack surface area, and the maintenance burden. Because every time you add some new API, you have to consider, how does this API interact with every other API that we've got? And the attack surface area problem is one where, if we don't think through how the combination of all these features impact each other, or we don't test it properly, then we end up with, attack vectors that people have.
Understood.
Sometimes people, they like to think I see it on Twitter. Somebody was saying this the other day, I just some random account, about how it's like, well, this is why you shouldn't use smart contracts because they can be attacked. And it's like, yeah, well, normal code can be attacked too. You just don't see it, but it's all there. Yeah. So that was a concern when we were thinking about it in terms of hooks. We thought, well, I think a hook could work if we added support such that if you basically associate with a token, then the hook becomes a mandatory install. That would have to happen because, like you were saying at the beginning, if it's not mandatory, it's not going to work because somebody could just
nobody
be
wants to be charged a fee, right?
Yeah, I'll uninstall that hook. Whee! Life is good. But then when we started thinking through the mechanics of it, is like, well, that hook as it's written is really no different from a computational cost and so on perspective from just having a smart contract. Nice. Having a smart contract it'd be relatively straightforward. It could be a basic ERC20 smart contract with the extra little bits. Since all the accounting is done inside the smart contract, it's very easy to apply fees. The challenge that you would have is when you want to assess the fees, you can't assess the fees on everybody all at once because that would just take way too much gas. You'd be limited on the amount of gas that you can do. On Hedera, we have a really elegant solution for that, which is the scheduled transaction call feature that we added. So the way that it would work, or the scheduled contract call. So the way that it would work is that you could when you first initially set up your contract, you set its first scheduled callback. It's kind of like a cron job. It's like, call me back on the 1st of next month or whatever. When your contract gets invoked, it then goes and looks and says, okay, do I have any fees to assess? And it starts assessing fees. Once it's done a handful of them, then it goes, okay, I'm going to schedule my callback for the next immediate opportunity. And then it just kind of keeps calling itself back over and over again until it has gone through and assessed all fees. And then when it gets to the last fee, then it goes, okay, I'm going to schedule, the next month's call. And so in this way, the contract actually becomes completely self-sustaining. There's not some external architecture. There's not some external person with a key who gets to call into the smart contract and say, now assess fees. Plus the contract itself would have, limits where it says, well, I can only assess these fees once a month or whatever. And I think that gets you out of, at least this is the theory that everybody else has been using on other chains, is that by having it in visible code that everybody can see, then it kind of gets you out of the centralized ownership model with the sort of legal overhead that's there.
And would we be able to put controls in place by using a smart contract that wouldn't allow even us to change it? Because that's one of the things that legal counsel said, when you want to make sure that it's set, that you can't just willy-nilly change things or have the ability to change things easily without proper controls.
No, it's exactly, that's the right question to be asking, because initially when smart contracts were first envisioned, it was a one and done, immutable contract, never gets changed. As much as you can do that, that's ideal. However, the real problem is that anybody who's ever written code has also written bugs. Like there's always bugs, and so you typically want to have an upgradable contract, but you then need to guard who has the right to upgrade the contract, and that's where things get gnarly. For us, I mean, theoretically, it's kind of the same problem if we put it into HTS in that, well, who's going to be able to update that? What kind of HIP comes along? But we have a built-in DAO, which is the council, and the TSC, which makes it so that there's a control for these things. And so you guys would not be able to unilaterally change the behavior of the system. It would have to be
that's
changed
the other
by...
control we were looking for is if it's baked into the token, then it adds that level of trust for the customer and the regulator as well.
Yeah, so if you do a smart contract, you end up having to do the same thing, which is to have a DAO or some kind of token holders voting on upgrades of contracts sort of story, which I think is the downside to it.
There's give and take on a lot of these solutions.
Richard, I have a quick question for you. The wipe functionality on the network for the token service, does that have the same network overhead as transferring tokens between accounts or burning tokens to a different account or what have you? Or is it not jumping into the transaction limit of the network?
No, it's all basically everything on the network is a crypto transfer at the bottom of it.
So even sending an instruction to do a wipe of something is going to be a transaction.
Because you still have to load.
You still have to send an instruction. Understood. Okay.
There's multiple accounts that have to get loaded. You have to change the balances of them. You have to assess staking rewards. You have to do all the other things. You have to generate the results that go out into the output stream. Even by the way, a duplicate transaction. So if you send a duplicate transaction, it still ends up having to charge somebody. It ends up being the same basic overhead as a crypto transfer.
Understood. I hate that we're taking up all your time here today, guys. We appreciate the time you've put into it already. We are going to be back every week, though, just to give you a heads up, because I know Ty has a hit he wants to go over. We're going to take as long as we take.
Sounds great.
Hendrik, we can certainly keep talking about it, but I do want to give some time to Ty because I know he was up here for today as well.
Thank you. So let me then share the agenda again. Here we go. So as you said, we have a second HIP for today, which is sponsored feed. So the question for you, Ty, do you think 10 minutes are reasonable for that HIP, or would you like to have more time and we move it to next week?
I think it's reasonable. It's been around since 2024. It's a very simple idea. The complexity in the code is there, but I think I can get it done.
So then I will stop here and give it to you.
Perfect. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. Cool. HIP 1068 has been around for a while, and the idea is, how do you have frictionless onboarding of accounts? The biggest problem, if you have a dApp or an application that wants to use the underpinning of Hedera, but you don't really want to add the complexity of account creation, of moving assets, of paying fees for the execution of assets that are in the accounts from the dApp, it's difficult. You can do it, but you have to have a lot of coordination on and off chain. It has to be a very centralized application so that you submit all the transactions to the network. And it's just very cumbersome. At the same time, what sponsored fees can bring us is a lot more flexibility on onboarding. So I think the best use case or the best example of what this HIP can bring is the hollow accounts become useful on day one. It is a happy transfer or a happy transaction, but if you create a bunch of accounts, or at least a bunch of account EVM addresses, and you do a sponsor to that EVM address, the first time that person has the corresponding key and creates an account from the hollow accounts, and does a transaction, it works. They don't have to do any account setup. They don't have to have HBAR in their account to do the gas of the transaction. You don't have to send HBAR to that account to create the account to then do the transaction. It just goes. And that ability of having a zero start functionality inside of accounts while also interacting with possible tokens or other things, I think is the highest value add that we would get on the network. Along with, like Web 2 applications, really, if they're going to use, Web 3, they don't want to have to send people through this whole rigmarole of getting HBAR, and it removes that requirement from everybody. So it's zero HBAR onboarding, Web3 without a balance sheet exposure, and it's an extensible primitive. So we do hope to also extend this over into gas fees. So yeah, you can have a token, or you can have an account that's going to execute a smart contract, and you can have an allowance that goes to the gas fee for that execution. Right now, it's transaction fees and crypto transfers. Where did I have that? Here we go. So it allows it's a little different than our current allowance, and it is allows the allowances, horrible way to say that also exist today to still exist. It doesn't change them in any way. The main difference is that when you do an allowance today, you write a transaction from the account that's moving the asset with is approval true inside of the bytes. This changes it where the user is actually writing transactions from their account with a sponsor and a scope. And so the sponsor would be 0.0.1000. The scope is transaction fees, and then you submit that, and whatever that transaction is, the fees are going to get paid by corresponding account. Those assets are in there to pay for it, and if not, it'll fail. That also is important for this kind of change in mindset. Well, the other one was like, I'm approved to remove it from this account and move it. This new iteration of sponsored fees is much more, I am doing something and this person's sponsoring me executing a transaction where I don't have to actually pay the fees or the crypto transfer, because you can pair them. You can have two scopes in one transaction if you need. I think the biggest difference of this HIP than most HIPs that are proposed are this also has a USD allowance. So if I have a DApp and I want to give everyone $5 USD allowance of execution, because I'm an enterprise and I think in dollars, that's a possible avenue. You have a unit. You can do HBAR, you can do USD. The USD, if you use that allowance, is calculated every time you do a transaction at that moment of the ERT or the actual HBAR to USD conversion of that transaction. So if you say, I'm giving $5 to Brandon, he does a transaction today, the day that I bought those HBARs, and then HBAR goes up to X, the amount of USD is going to be the same, but the amount of transactions that Brandon can do is different. So it is a moving target because it's done every time that you do the transaction of the calculation of how much USD is left. But at the same time, it's much more digestible for enterprises. We went through a lot of speculation and discussion on should there be a USD amount, and we think there's value add there, and that it's legally viable, which is really important. So that's a new interesting thing for allowances that I think dApps will enjoy, and this is sort of the flow. So you grant the allowance. If I am the sponsor, I'm the sponsor to Brandon, I'll grant the allowance and the scope and the amount, and then Brandon will do a transaction, and that will set me as the in the scope. Say, hey, he's my sponsor. This is the scope he's doing. Do the transaction. And then it just pulls the fees out of my account. Your account is shown on the network as doing the transaction. And then the fees come from me, and it's atomic, all or nothing. It was a little bit quick, but hopefully that was sensible and sensible. So if any questions, I'm here to answer. And then this is in last call. So the hope is that we can get TSC approval for this to continue to go forward into the development phase.
So not a question, but a comment. I really like the presentation, Ty. I know it's not handmade, but it makes this overview of an HIP so much better. That's really great. Thank you for that.
Yeah, my best friend Claude helped me out, but
Yeah, I
I'm
know.
glad.
You see, if you see some of them, you know where they're coming from. But anyway, it's a benefit. So absolutely. So yeah.
Awesome. So if no questions, Henrik, is there time to do a vote today, or is that something that we'd want to do in the next TSC?
So if you are not in a rush with that, I would always do it a week after the presentation.
Mm.
Which means we will vote on it next week. If you say, oh, that should go in as soon as possible, we could do an asynchronous vote. That would be the other option. Up to you. But if it's not time constrained, we could do it next week. But I'm seeing Sophie has a question or a comment.
No, it's just an unrelated topic.
Oh, okay. So Ty, then let's first concentrate on that. What do you prefer here?
I really do want this hip to go forward. At the same time, I don't think a week is going to be detrimental. I am trying to take this to TechCom as well, and I don't think one is if this is in, I can do both. They're AC. So, yeah, I think if we can vote on this next week, that would be superb.
Yeah. Next week, I'm looking at the TSC people here. Are you available next week? Because I will be on vacation, and if others do the same, maybe even an asynchronous vote would be helpful, because worst if we do not have quorum then. Nobody
Yeah,
complains.
so in that one sentence, yeah, let's do an async vote. You've changed my mind.
Oh, we can ask Jessica to create it. So let's do an asynchronous vote on that one. So Jessica, can you take care of it? Okay, Jessica takes care of it, and then whoever will moderate next week's the TSC should have a look at it and see if it went through and if it's voted in. That's the idea. So you more or less don't need to do anything, Ty. We will create it, and we create an issue, and then the TSC people can vote on that issue, and hopefully all of us vote within the week, and then next week we can just say, yeah, it's done.
Love it. Awesome.
Perfect. Good. Let's do it like that. And thank you, Jessica, for directly saying, yeah, I do it. Sophie.
All right, yeah, I know we're out of time, so I guess we'll have to talk about this some other time. But yeah, the hips are really interesting and things. I was planning on having a few minutes at the end to talk about some small things. So we have some blockers in Hiero that are pretty persistent.
Okay.
Which is regards to the speed of communication with maintainers that have permissions in projects. And so, for example, in the Hiero website, where did I put this?
Yeah, okay.
In the Hiero website, we are blocked with several PRs. Some of these have been reviewed in the past, but it's really slow progress. In the SDKs, in the Discord, we have quite a few questions that are blocked, and I think some of the issue looking at the config is that there's very few people in this team who may be in similar time zones or similar workplaces. So that, yeah, and then similar issue with the SDKs in some ways as well.
Yeah. Okay, now I know what you mean. I'm aware of that. What I can tell you is that since people of that are from Hashgraph, I already targeted that topic within Hashgraph, that we need to do something here. I agree with what you said, and I know that some of those people have been in vacation and they are back. I pinged them again, and they told me that they will come with feedback for me before I go to vacation. So I hope I can give you some feedback within this week on that topic. Yeah. I hope that is good. If not, yeah, so I'm not there next week. Normally, I would say it gets put it on the agenda. I can prepare it, but whoever is doing the TSC then, we can put it on the agenda. But I hope anyway that we have a solution for that next week. And if not, it should have enough space on the TSC call next week. I totally agree on that. Does that make sense to you?
Yep, that would be good to be able to discuss different things in the TSC.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Good. Oh yeah, yeah, okay. People second that issue and so okay, yeah. Understood. Okay, but I think with that, at the end we had some other topics on the agenda, but nothing that need to be done today, so we can postpone it for upcoming TSC calls. First of all, thank you, Brandon and Ty, for presenting the HIPs. We had another project proposal. I think a lot of cool content today. And thank you, Sophie, for bringing in concerns. I think it's always good to name those things. Yeah, and normally I say see you in a week. This time I don't see it because I will be on vacation.
Yeah.
But see you after my vacation.
Thanks for your attention and help, guys. Good meeting. Thanks.
All right.
See you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.